Howdy, and welcome back to the Addicted Motors YouTube channel. My name is Troy, and well, if you can't tell, here in Virginia, it just got cold outside. Now, that within itself is something that happens yearly. It's not a unnormal thing to occur, but if you're a car guy and you've lots of old cars, there are many things that happen to your cars when it gets cold, and that's what we're going to discuss today. The effects of cold on your older, very old, not that old, but just old enough for things to crop up that didn't crop up when it was warmer out. So that's what we're gonna get into today. And if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe and check out all my other videos on YouTube. We cover the whole automotive gamut from old Mercedes to BMWs to Land Rovers, Range Rovers, diesel trucks, reviews, tips, adventures, auction buys, and maybe even some car storage and sales coming up in the near future. But today we're going to talk about the effects that of the cold weather is going to have on your older vehicles, because again, a lot of things are obvious, but some are not. But when you're trying to maintain a collection of old shit boxes, then it gets to be interesting. This is a fine time of year for driving, but it also requires a little bit more maintenance and you to pay attention to your vehicles more so, well, in parallel with some things that would happen in the heat. So let's get into it. Well, you find me in the garage because the first finding, or the first effect of the cold weather, the most prominent one, at least in my world, is the effects that cold have on tires. If your tires are set at 35 PSI in the summer, once the cold weather, the pressure and everything comes in, your tires lose tire pressure. So if they were previously set at 35, they might be at 27, they might be at 25, they might just be a bit lower, or one leaks a little bit more than the other one. It also will exacerbate the effects of having a slow leak or a bad valve stem or something on your tires. That tire will lose pressure faster and cause some adverse effects to your driving. Or in your case of a more higher performance vehicle, some handling characteristics and other things that might not be what you're looking for, or you might not expect if you take it out on a colder day versus a warmer day. So the first thing that I think the cold affects the most is tire pressures, and especially for, you know, cars, if you've got a cracked rim or some pre-existing effect, cold weather will exacerbate it and cause issues. So check your tires. Now, the next big one on my list is batteries. When the weather gets colder, everything gets colder. Your car is colder. If she's cold, you're cold, they're cold. Check on your vehicles. No, but in all seriousness, when it gets colder, your oil gets a little denser and it gets a little bit heavier, which causes it to be a little bit harder to crank and start the vehicle. So if you've got a pre-existing weak battery or some type of battery drains, which if you all own a lot of these old vehicles, especially if they've got some light accessories or a winch or something plugged into it, the cold weather just doesn't allow those ions and stuff in the battery to do what they have to do to produce those cold cranking amps. And especially in these older vehicles with V8s or V8 diesels, that oil is thicker, it's older, it just takes more energy to crank over, and it'll cause you know, a little bit more wear and stress on that battery, again, if it's pre-existing. These aren't really big things for brand new vehicles, but I don't own any of those. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming you don't either. This 7.3 Power Stroke is the worst, right? It's got glow plugs, and they're older glow plugs, so it needs a lot of glow plugs. It needs more battery. It has a dual battery setup, but the oil is thicker. It's got 14 quarts oil. So in the winter, if I don't plug this thing in, it's a bear to start. And if my glow plug relay is not functioning correctly, I potentially can drain the batteries trying to crank it if things are not functioning perfectly, which they're not. Now, the other one, I guess if you want to get into the diesel side of thing, is gelling of the fluid. Right now it's 45 degrees. It's a lot nicer than it was yesterday when it was 25 degrees. But if your diesel truck or car, or I have the Diesel X5 and I have this Power Stroke here that has metal tanks, there's a potential, if they sit out for longer periods, to have that diesel fluid gel up. And again, it has not occurred in this type of Richmond winter. It doesn't really get that cold here, but you know, sometimes when I'm out in the mountains or somewhere, there's always that potential. So you carry some diesel 911 or some type of anti-gel things that needs to go into the fuel itself, but it's just another kind of thing to think about. when the weather changes. And it's just a little bit more wear and tear on the vehicles, and just an extra thought or thing to throw in the back of the truck along with everything else you put in your I have an old car rescue kit. With, you know, just put a new motor in the back, I think at this point. Now, I'm standing in front of this P38, but it doesn't have air suspension, but that is the next topic on my list of things to, list of things that will be affected by the cold in your older vehicles. And air suspension is definitely one of them. I've owned LR3s, Range Rover Sports, L320s, and L322 Range Rovers. And in the winter, these 10, 15-year-old airbags, lines, valves, all that system, you know, it's all material, it all contracts a little bit, and it all potentially creates small leaks that when it gets cold will cause your suspension to kind of, let's say, deflate in a proper manner every once in a while. So in the summer, the thing will stay pretty much rock solid for the most part. And again, I'm not referring to perfectly maintained, replaced vehicles, because even if it is, it's still probably going to leak a little bit. But in the wintertime, you're going to find more active or I guess the leaks leak out quicker, especially from the back suspension. I feel like a lot of the valve blocks in the LR3s and the L322s are more susceptible to slow leaks. If you open a tailgate or whatnot, it causes the car to kind of dip a little bit for convenience, but I feel like it makes those flaps for that shuttle valve or the splitter valve back there to, you know, maybe not close up and seal as nicely as, you know, things get cooler. So yeah, air suspension will definitely be affected by the cold. You'll wake up with that typical bong of a suspension error sometimes, in conjunction with your battery, which is kind of starting to drain itself due to the cold as well. So it's just a wonderful time to be alive when you're driving old vehicles in the cold winter temperatures. And then you might ask, why am I standing in front of a D2 for this one? Well, it's not leaking yet, but the next one will be heater core leaks and kind of cooling system or heating system woes, right? We just got through the summer. I played cooling system games all summer, replaced a bunch of water pumps, a bunch of thermostats, a bunch of radiators in a lot of cars, just to keep them cool. But now we're in the winter time, so keeping them warm is not really a struggle, but it is something to kind of be aware of. If you've got any type of blockage in your heater core or a cracked heater core or something like that, you'll notice wet carpets, a loss of coolant, a sweet smell, and that really doesn't come out unless you kind of run the heat. In some cases, if it's very major, it will, but you'll start to notice some coolant loss, that sweet smell, the wet carpets, and you'll really start understanding why people don't like to do some of those jobs in a lot of these older vehicles. The P38 being one of them. That's kind of a dash out job. The other one is if you have, I know I'm using a lot of Land Rover references, but they do struggle from a lot of these things. You know, your heater core can be kind of blocked or one way or the other. So you'll get, you know, heat on one side, cool on another. There's a valve in there that'll stick or clog, and then you'll figure out when it gets cool, right, what all these problems are kind of, you know, bubbling up that you weren't aware of during the summer months. Maybe it's just me, but this one's a big one that I've kind of encountered the last few years as well. Sticking thermostats, they like to tend to stick open, hopefully, unless you're Andy, my buddy, and his stuck closed, which was not fun. But I'm really finding that these cars have, for the most part, if they haven't already been replaced, they are due for replacement thermostat. And it's not something that goes bad that often, but when it does, it's fairly obvious. In the cooler weather, you're running the heat, and it doesn't all the way get up to temperature. And you spend all summer trying to make this thing run cool, and now it's running too cool because you're going up and down grades and it's just not heating up. You probably have a stuck thermostat. And also with these California cars that I buy, a lot of them might have a thermostat removed, or it's stuck open, or you don't really notice it until the cooler weather comes out and that gauge doesn't get up to temp, the car runs a little bit rich, and you're having those issues. So check your thermostat, check your temperatures, make sure things are getting up to temp. I know in my diesel truck, the 7.3, that thing just never really gets all the way up to temp, even though the transmission probably gets a little warmer than it needs to be. So that's gonna be one that I'm gonna have to diag very soon. So it's a part of the season. It's just a part of doing this. I just like replacing parts all the time. It's a good, you know, season for the parts suppliers, I feel like. And I am in the garage for a reason. The next one, when things get cold, that rubber contracts, it's old rubber, and then you start to find leaks you didn't have before. And this one, at least with the Mercedes, I've got a little seep coming out of my power steering return line, which wasn't there in the warmer months. Again, all these engines and bits and pieces are 35, 40, 20 years old. It's gonna start failing, and things that haven't failed before will, again, start failing because they're just reached the end of their term of usability and life. So belts will squeal, rubber will shrink, new leaks will arise, and you will again find yourself infinitely occupied by new projects from these wonderful machines. And the last one, I don't have the X5 or another BMW here, but I think the L322 does it as well. It is the cold weather indicator bongs, where you start up the car and you had no bongs, and now you have bongs, and the bongs are indicate usually there's something terminally wrong with the vehicle, or you have some massive failure or whatnot, but it just says bong, bong, temperature under 37 degrees or whatever. And you're like, yeah. So that occurs, you'll be driving and maybe the temperature will drop a little bit and it'll do that and it'll freak you out. But it's usually just the car thinking that it's smart and funny and indicating that the temperature is lower. I mean, I wish we could get that feature off vehicles. Now, a lot of these issues are all intertwined. When I talk about my diesel truck, and for those of you in Europe that, again, have diesel vehicles with glow plugs and batteries and cold weather and all that fun stuff, a lot of it is intertwined. So you could have yourself a very bad morning where you come out with low tires, a low battery that doesn't cycle the glow plugs long enough, which has a slow start, which doesn't create enough compression to fire it over, and you're just like, man, this is just a lot all at one time. Why don't I just buy a Prius? So that's kind of things that the cold weather might bring out in you if you're a quitter. So don't be a quitter. Maintain your stuff, put on a battery tender, plug your diesel truck in, check your tires, make sure your cooling system is properly bled and purged. Make sure that heater core is not leaking, and put a new thermostat in your vehicle. If you own a garage, this is the time of year to do that type of little bit of maintenance. So that's my tips and tricks, I guess, of things that I deal with when it gets colder. I own many vehicles, so that's probably $2,000 worth of potential batteries if they all go bad at the same time, which I'm not gonna lie, I've had a few bad batteries off the shelf recently. They don't make them like they used to, apparently. So that's the list this time. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe. Check out the podcast on Spotify and some of the other videos. Follow me on Instagram, do all that YouTube stuff. I do appreciate it. I've got some other things in the work that have taken a lot of my time recently, but hopefully we'll get back to a normal posting schedule for videos. So that's all I got. Catch you in the next video. See ya.